And one. Hello, folks. It's Bradley J. Welcome to the channel. We're going to have a lot of fun today. As you may know, I have Bob Allison from Suffolk University on a lot. He's a historian. He specializes in the Revolutionary War period. And he's got colleagues, friends over there. And today we speak with one of them, EVGENIA Cherkasova, who is a philosopher and teaches a lot of courses in philosophy at Suffolk University, including the meaning of life. But other cool courses include argumentation, critical thinking and argumentation, which got me into my major in college, ethics, which is how you try to figure out the right way to act, the right decisions to make, and all the arguments on either side, which I find super interesting, philosophy of art, philosophy of literature, philosophy of freedom, and philosophy of art and beauty. There are other courses as well. Anyway, thank you for being with us, Genya.
It's great to be here, Bradley. Thank you for inviting me.
Now, you teach a course in the meaning of life. It presupposes there is a meaning. It is a meaning. Do we have to believe there's a meaning at all? Meaning at all to take the course?
Well, it does not necessarily presuppose that there is a meaning. All philosophy classes really are about, they're not about what you are supposed to think. They are about the ways in which you can approach the question. So the course on the meaning of life is an exploration of whether there is a meaning.
So there are a lot of ways to use philosophy. For me, recently, it helps me deal with adversity, and it can help a person become self-actualized, become the person they think they should be or want to become. Can you explain how your courses can help that take place?
Well, the courses that immediately come to mind are existentialism and the meaning of life course, which I sometimes also call philosophy as a way of life. And dealing with adversity and dealing with the givens of existence is the biggest set of questions that we can actually ask. So how do courses help? I think my students could speak to that. They all are saying that studying existentialism or studying different schools of philosophy that help you deal with things like loss and mortality and how to face difficult situation in life. Those are things that really make them think about their own values and think about the ways that they can actually develop. So
do you feel like people need to be of college age to start to understand this stuff, or is it something that you could start to teach some version of in high school because it's so important? What do you
absolutely.
think? You think you could teach it in high school?
There's even a movement now, philosophy for children, and that is a movement in the United States, but it really is kind of a given in many other cultures. So philosophy is taught in school, in high school and middle school in Europe and in Latin America, in Russia. So there's nothing abnormal about that. There are questions that are more pronounced at different stages of our lives. So obviously the things that you talk about with a teenager are not necessarily the same things that you would talk to a friend of our age. But you'd be surprised, actually. First I was a little apprehensive about teaching this meaning of life course to freshmen. But then it turned out that it's quite a rewarding experience.
Well, I suppose that a lot of philosophy is about decisions you make, and when you're living with your parents, you have fewer decisions to make. I can't remember back that far. I guess there actually were significant decisions to make, but you get a lot more decisions to make when you get on your own. So maybe it's particularly germane to the freshman who's just gets to school and has to make most decisions on their own. So there are
True.
schools of philosophy, which amount to periods, groups of people in periods of time who have usually, I think, people who devote all day, every day, their lives to thinking about how to act, how to be, how to become self-actualized. And it's helpful to pay attention to these people who have done that. That was their life. And then you get to other people who have adopted that and can, like Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, yeah.
Yes.
And the guy has really high pressure. There's a lot of bad stuff happening in Rome at the time he is emperor, and he studies philosophy and uses it. So he's a case of a person who wasn't just a pure studier of it, but he put it into action every day as Emperor of Rome. So the way I look at it, if it's good enough for Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, it might work for me. And I also appreciate the others, the Aristotles and all, who I picture them sitting around some area in Athens, just thinking all day and arguing all day. And there's some value to that too. So the trick is for you to figure out which of these groups might be most helpful to you, or what can I cherry pick from this group and this group or this group. And in order to do that, that's why you study philosophy, to know what these groups say and what might be applicable to you. And towards the end of understanding all that, you have created an online game.
That's
and
right.
We're going to actually go through that. Tell me the name of the game and in your synopsis, how it works.
Well, it's an interactive fiction game. So you are presented with a bunch of scenarios which test your affinities with different set of values. And I initially, when I came up with this idea, I asked friends to help me, and I would like to acknowledge that there was a whole team of people helping me out. Most notably, my colleague Dmitry Zinoviev, who is in the computer science department, who actually coded the whole thing, and Heather Albano, who helped with the fleshing out of the different scenarios of the game. As far as the philosophical content of the game, there are 8 philosophical schools there that judge you as you make different decisions. And by the end of the game, you have something like a philosophical portrait of who you are and what kind of choices you tend to make, and what you see valuable, what you see not so valuable, and how you face different kind of dilemmas. And this game is really created for the students. So you are asked to imagine that you are a second-year student, and the choices are created for that audience. But the choices really are more universal. So the questions that may have to do, they seem to be about sports, for example, but they really are about competitiveness, your need to win versus your attitude towards playing, whether you win or not, and so on. So the questions seem to be particular, but they actually are quite universal, and we can talk more about that.
And just prior to coming live, I asked you a couple of questions that turned out to be interesting for both of us. And one is, as an adult, like an extreme adult, when you play this game, you have to decide, do I answer these questions as the me I am today, or the me that I kind of remember myself to be then? That's one decision you have to make, which in itself is interesting and maybe even telling. But also students have to decide, do I answer this as the me I believe myself to be, or the me that I believe I should be or should become. So that you mentioned is a key thing right there for the people, the students to consider. How do I answer this? As
Exactly. It
and
is.
they
Yeah.
can realize then there may be a big gap between the they that they know they are and the they that they figure they should be. And if there's a big gap, then that could cause them mental problems. Well, I don't mean,
It's
insanity, but it could cause uncomfortableness and stress, and could be causing them problems in their life if they really know they're not the person they should be.
Well, actually, I think it's a very positive stress because it highlights the most important distinction in ethics between what is and what ought to be. We cannot really talk about, the world in which we want to live or the justice system unless we kind of imagine how things ought to be. And how things really are is never truly how we think they ought to be. And that applies to us as well. It is very useful to be in that position where you realize, well, I wish I were that kind of person, but actually, I have to admit that I am this kind of person. Well, if I really want to be that other better person, what do I need to do?
So this one thing wonderful about your courses is that what you learn can be used whatever you do in your life. And I found that to be true of any philosophical study that I have undertaken. Regardless of where you go, these tools will be things you can use forever. And I can see why your courses are so popular. Are you ready to play the game? We're
Yay.
going to take a look at this thing. I'm going to screen share. I have brought up a starting point in the game, and we're going to kind of go through this together. Can you all see this? This is an interface that you come up with early on, and I'll explain it briefly as I understand it. You can tell me where I'm wrong, but we're presented, well, as it says, we're a traveler in the ocean of life. It gives us situations, kind of real life situations students might encounter because because students are the people that use this most. And there's a nautical theme, and some of there are key phrases and things to talk about. First, there's the Windrose, and there are sigils. Is that how you say it? And the bottles with messages in it from the schools of philosophy, and a treasure chest. Can you put together what we see here? I guess talk about the Windrose and how that factors in.
Well, the Windrose is, I think, is an interesting imagery because generally the Windrose is a nautical device, right? It allows the sailors to know from where the wind is coming and how strong it is. So the Windrose in this game features 8 different philosophical schools: the Epicureans, the Stoics, the Buddhists, Taoists, pessimists, existentialists, humanists, and the classical Greek philosophers, which I put under the umbrella of Aristotelian teaching. So as you make your choices, this Windrose starts to show some color. And that tells you which school approves of your choice and which school does not.
Okay. So a Windrose, meteorologically speaking, is a map that shows you from which way the wind blows. And
it's like a compass. Yeah.
And,
it's a map.
And so you see the compass, and you see if there's more color pointing in one direction, which you'll see later, that means the wind is coming from that direction. And in this case, the direction equals school of philosophical thought.
Yes.
And as we make our decisions on what to do in certain situations, you'll see the direction change. Oh, you're leaning a little towards the Northwest or the Stoics. And I guess the best way to do it is to forge ahead here. So
Right. And Bradley, you just mentioned the northwest or the east. And if you look at the sigils, they actually are situated depending on their own affinities. So the Stoics are close to Buddhists for a reason, but you can also see the west and the east quite clearly. The Western schools are in the west and the Eastern are in the east. And then more of up and down. The highest one is the Epicureans, happiness, pleasure, appreciation of life, and the lowest one, pessimists.
That took some thought. Now, sigils really are icons, and right?
Yes, the icons. Yes.
There's an icon for each of the schools of thought. So let's forge forward and play the game. The story opens, second year of college, not yet picked a major, decisions to come soon. You've always loved art. Perhaps that love will influence your choices. And you're an athlete of significant skill, which is a stretch, but I'll forge forward. All right, here's our first dilemma. Athletic field, soccer team. First time your school's made it to the semifinals. If you win this game, you get into the finals, and you got to make this shot.
Right. And I think part of that situation, part of the meaning of this situation is also that you are being pressured by your coach. So you feel kind of the weight of the situation on your shoulders. How do you approach this? And this could apply to other situations, not necessarily on the athletic field.
So you have 4 choices. One, we're going to tear them apart. You're super confident. The other one is, how could I possibly screw this up? I'm the best player. Even more confident in yourself. The first one, you're kind of confident on the team. The next one, in yourself. The next one is, this isn't really for me. I don't need this pressure. I'll play the game. I don't really care about it. And then win or lose. Today, like always, I'll play the soccer for the joy of it. So what you do is you choose, depending on how you would tend to approach this, I guess you answer based on what you think the right answer is, or what you think, or the real you. And I suppose if you're really going to get the most out of the game, you answer as the real you, correct?
Yes, right. Exactly.
You shouldn't.
Oh, let me ask you, Bradley, are you a competitive person?
You know what? I don't think so. If I were, I'd probably be further along in life and less happy.
Yeah. So here we go.
I'm not. I'm win-lose today. Like always, I'll play for the joy of it. Correct. That's me. And that's in my career in radio, there are other people that paid attention to, all the jobs open and really were competitive. And I had fun. I said, wow, this is great. I'm going to enjoy it. And I'm not going to screw it up. I'm going to pay attention to business and just enjoy this. So I'll answer, win or lose, I always play for the joy of it. Oh, look at what happens. We get a message in a bottle from, let's click on it and see. Oh, it's this, I guess, is
a Taoist. It's a Taoist symbol. So you get a message from Lao Tzu, who commands you on your choice.
So, and I get this message from him because of my choice. If I'd chosen a different answer, I would have gotten a different message, right?
Yes. Well, the messages sometimes, most of the time, you get the messages from the schools that really approve of your choice. But every once in a while, you can get a message from someone who disapproves of your choice, and you have to read the message to know what it is.
So some other school might think differently about my choice. And this is interesting. Lao Tzu, that's how you say it, correct?
Yes, Lao Tzu.
The best players embody the spirit of non-competition, which is kind
of...
There we go. which is kind of, which is not intuitive. Not that they don't love to compete, but they do it in the spirit of play. Yeah. Yes. And I feel real fortunate about that thing in me, because I'm generally a happy person, and I feel like that's one of the major reasons. I think you
Right.
get too competitive. There's something going on. There's something wrong. Your father was pressured you too much or something. Okay, so we're going to archive this and move on. And you can, we have to get the folks the link to this so they can play it on their own because it's cool. We have, so now we've progressed, right?
Yes.
To a
So
new
what happened?
situation.
Did you win?
Let's see. It just says you keep your eyes open for scoring opportunity, passing the ball to a teammate. Right. I want to win. I want my teammates to say, "You're awesome." That's really my goal. But the other team plays well. The game will go into overtime. If your team doesn't manage a goal right now, you're going to lose. They pass the ball to me. I kick and I score. So
And you
let's.
score.
Okay. So, oh God, how am I going to deal with this? Let's see. We have another choice coming up. All right. I score. My teammates jump on me. Coach smiles. Nice job. I emerge. Everybody loves me. And that has happened, by the way. The surrounding crowd is cheering. How do you handle your fame? All right. About time they noticed me. I'm the star. Or I'm glad the team won. All our hard training paid off. Nah, I'm not that altruistic either. I just remain calm. And, I know this is just a moment. It could have gone the other way, but I'm going to embrace it. Absolutely. That was an easy one for me. I'll take that one. I move forward and we'll see what happens. Okay. Modest in victory, graceful in defeat. My man, Marcus Aurelius. That's right.
Your man, exactly. Marcus Aurelius. Marcus knew really well what that actually means, as you pointed out earlier, because his life was not easy, even though he was an emperor. And yeah.
Are people allowed to audit your course? And like, what? How does that go? How does auditing work? I feel like sitting in the back of the class in your room, just listening, would be cool.
It used to be absolutely allowed, and I would love to have people to audit the course. My people who graduated from Suffolk would come, alums and friends. But then universities became a little bit more strict about that somehow. I am not happy about the formalities that we now have to face, but if you're interested, I'll make it happen.
Okay. So, folks, I think I don't want to go and play the whole game for you. I want you to play it. I think it's the coolest thing. And any understanding, any self-understanding you can arrive at through any means is extremely valuable. And this game is very cool. Also, personally, I recommend YouTube's. One thing the pandemic did for me is I don't watch television at all. I cannot stand commercials. YouTube's good because even if you don't get the paid version and there's a commercial, usually you can click it right off. And why spend your time looking at stupid TV when you can spend time making your life better? My life was genuinely improved by stuff I learned on YouTube during this pandemic, especially the philosophy. And I'm happy to give you some links. So let's move on a bit here. I have personal questions. I'm going to take advantage of your expertise and talk about the particular thing that I stumbled on was Stoicism. There are, first of all, what are the main? You mentioned them briefly. The icons in your game represent the main schools of thought, and I know it's difficult, but you're a pro. You can do it. Each of these main 9 with one sentence about kind of what they say.
Oh,
I know, but this is a challenge. But I know you're up to it.
Okay, it's okay. Let me take the challenge. So let's start with Epicureans. Probably the most misunderstood, misrepresented school of philosophy, because everyone thinks that Epicureans just say that you eat, drink, and be merry.
Right. It's like food. Those are the foodies.
Food. That's the foodie thing. Exactly. But it's much more subtle. And it focuses on simple pleasures and how to live life in accordance with nature and be able to live in such a way that you do not disturb yourself or others, in a sense.
Okay. Keep a small footprint. Next.
Right. The Stoics. The Stoics are actually experiencing a huge renaissance right now. There are books about Stoics and so on. They basically say you need to understand what is within your control and what is not. And most of life is not within your control. What is within your control is your own attitude, what's going on within you. And you really need to pay attention to that, because otherwise you will be the slave of circumstances and the slave of other people, unless you pay attention.
You can really waste your life worrying about stuff you can't have any control over. Worrying about that doctor's appointment, worrying about what someone thought of you. And I'm telling you, folks, it's emancipating. It's kind of like a muscle. You have to flex it and you practice it. Just do not allow stuff, or try not to allow stuff that you have no control over to take any time in your mind. Okay, who's next?
The Buddhists. Most people know something about the Buddhists.
Pretty depressing, kind of, to me. Life is suffering, at least in my very limited knowledge of it, it's kind of a bummer.
It really is not depressing. It's actually quite illuminating and liberating. But yes, it starts with the premise that life is suffering, but that is not an exactly correct translation. It points out that life is full of some sort of dissatisfaction, or life is kind of out of joint, and so you need to be able to deal with that, and you will definitely deal with that. And unless you're prepared, you will be smitten by the disappointments in life.
How do you prepare? How do you deal with it? You give up, don't you?
No, you don't. The middle path. So you try to pay attention again. And that's why you can see that the Stoics and the Buddhists are pretty close to in this Windrose in the game. And that is because they both say that you need to pay attention to the way you think about life. And that the quality of your thoughts determine the quality of your life.
Oh, all right.
Yes. And so, no, it's not about despair. It's not about giving up. It's actually about paying attention to the way you sabotage yourself.
Okay. You're doing a great job. We've already burned through 3 of them. Let's do a few more.
The Taoists. Okay, the Taoists, and you could see the yin and yang together. And the Taoists are pretty close to the Buddhists. For many different reasons. How should I summarize the Taoists? The Taoists emphasize the need to let go and the need to be able to go with the flow of life and live in accordance with nature.
Someone asked me this question, and there was a situation, and they asked me to compare how the Stoics or the Taoists would deal with it, and it turned up that their interpretation of it seemed that the Taoists say it's okay to not be productive, just to lay around.
Absolutely.
Whereas the Stoics say they're kind of a business-like group, and you should strive. Taoists are, you don't need to strive so much, just chill. Correct?
That's right. And the Stoics, really, for them, social responsibility and your contribution to the world is very important. For example, the whole idea of cosmopolitanism, being the citizen of the world, it's a Stoic notion. They were really big on being cosmopolitans. But the Taoists are saying the world is what it is. No matter what you do, you don't have any particular duty to improve anything. You chill.
Okay, we only have do like 3 more.
All right. I'll skip the pessimists because it's not really a philosophical school. It's just an attitude towards life represented by a few people like um, Arthur Schopenhauer. And I'll go to the existentialists. The existentialists basically say no excuses. Your life is up to you. You find meaning in life. You act and you take responsibility for your actions. The world doesn't owe you anything. There's no cosmic justice or meaning. You are here on earth to create that meaning and justice if you want. Then we have the humanists represented here by the Leonardo's great Vitruvian Man. And I think all as Western thinkers, we know what humanists what they stand for. It's a great movement that glorifies human achievement, technology, art, great things that we humans are capable of. And it's very, very positive.
If I may,
Go ahead.
One thing that bothers me about the humanists is they just believe that the humans
at the center of the universe.
It's too much at the center.
Right.
Rather than just another animal that happens to be smarter and self-aware, they kind of strike me as the humans were everything else was put on this earth for the humans, and that rubs me.
That's right. Yes,
it rubs me the wrong way.
It is anthropocentric, and the one of the main ideas is also that we are here to conquer nature.
Yeah, exactly.
We all know where it brought us in the 21st century.
All right, let's finish up with the pessimists.
Oh, the pessimists. They basically say that life is not worth living. So here's your one sentence thing.
Is there?
It's not a business worth investing into.
So does that provide comfort to the pessimists? Is that how that works? Just give up now and relax?
It actually provides some comfort if you look at the discrepancy between your expectations and the way your life turns out to be. So if you're a pessimist and you don't expect anything, everything's already broken, everything already sucks, then you may, end up being quite content.
Well, early on in my life, one of the keys to my happiness happened to be, I guess, pessimistic, because I used to say half jokingly and half not jokingly, the key to happiness is to set the bar low. Just set the bar low and you'll be happy. Mm-hmm. And I have done that, and it's true. So maybe I'm a little bit of a pessimist. Before we wrap up,
philosophical pessimist, you have to remember that there is a difference between being philosophically a pessimist and not, being
the pop culture pessimist.
Right.
Okay, Francis Bacon, I'm going to take advantage of your expertise to ask you a question I always wonder about. Here we go. Are you ready? You know where I'm going since I say Francis Bacon. A little philosophy makes men atheists, though a great deal would cure them of atheism. In other words, you study philosophy in the beginning, you think, there's no God. And then you study a lot and you think, whoa, there is a God. So here's kind of where I'm at. And that is, it's equally, either option is equally implausible. That's just impossible really to, understand a creator. And it's also impossible to understand a world where there was no creator. So why not, since each is equally impossible, just go with the option that provides comfort? What you don't have to answer that now. We can save that. Is that a
no? It's a great question.
Is that a wrong way to go? Since there's no evidence either way, and one provides comfort and one's pretty cold. Why not? Why not go with the one that has comfort, even if it just has ritual that provides comfort? That's where I'm at. Maybe more than you want to answer now, but you can think of it for next time.
It's a great question, actually. First of all, philosophy is not there to provide comfort. Philosophy is actually something that teaches you how to be uncomfortable in a productive way, I guess. So great ideas are not really comfortable. They are meant to shake you up. So, but that said, it's true that the more you study philosophy or think about life in general, you appreciate more the complexity and the depths and the incomprehensibility of existence. And that may bring you to God. Not everyone goes that way, but I can see what Bacon is talking about.
Right. So, does he? How does that process work? You must see it over and over in your field. Newbies say, "No way, there's a God," but then people that really embrace it start. Some of them start to go that way. Or what happens to make them go?
Actually,
What do they see in their studies that makes them change direction? Is my question.
oh, that's a great question. But what I see is that it actually goes both ways. When something really horrific happens, people who are believers all of a sudden have a crisis of faith. And they say, oh my God, how could I believe that there is this great creator when there's so much evil in the world? Same thing happens. Someone who never believed in God all of a sudden starts believing in God because they thought that their life and their world was cold and meaningless before, and now that this tragedy strikes, that they need foundation, spiritual foundation in their lives. So it can go either way. What do people discover that makes them change or have a crisis of meaning or crisis of faith? Usually it's something that happens in their life that fundamentally shakes them and shakes the values that they used to take for granted.
Okay. Now we said we are going to go a half an hour. It's 36 minutes. Before we go, and I promised that I would talk about you at some point, and this would be that point. Tell me
Oh, we
how
don't
you.
have to.
I need to know you. I think it's super interesting that you went to the University of Moscow. I love that, and I'd like to know about your young life and how you came to be where you are now, in any version that you care to give me.
Whew, I was born in the Soviet Union, and I started my education at exactly Moscow State University. That's a very famous university, my alma mater. I'm still in love with that place, and I studied mathematics. Then, around the time the Soviet Union pretty much started to collapse or started to go while I was a student. So that was a very exciting time. The time when we would go up in the streets and dismantle some, old monuments, something familiar to the new generation here. And when everything was dismantled in the life as we knew it at the time, it was pretty much possible to do whatever you want with your life. And the Iron Curtain was up, and you could do anything. So a lot of people changed. We call it changed careers, but it was not really about careers. It was about your path in life. So, very short version, I was always interested in philosophy. And the United States is the only country where you could go to grad school and study something that you did not study as an undergraduate.
Really?
You cannot do this in Russia. You cannot do this in Europe. If you studied mathematics or physics or something, this is what you know, and you cannot really jump into grad school, master's level, or much less the doctoral level study in a different discipline. But in the United States, you can do that if you are successful as if you can show that you have the brains to do what it takes to do it. And that's great. It's a wonderful thing. So I came here to study philosophy, and I did not mean to. I don't know. It was just an experiment.
Because you loved it. That's why you did it. You followed your passion, as they say. It's
That's right.
Cliche, but true, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, Suffolk University is way better off for having found you. They are very fortunate to have you. And so I'm very fortunate to have had you today on this program. Thank you so much. And I would love it if we could figure out from time to time a way to drill down on various subjects. We really, I think, done a pretty good overview today, and we could talk about any of those cool looking courses that you teach. We'll talk about that later, but thank you.
Thank you, Bradley. Thank you for having me.
Very, very much. EVGENIA CHERKASOVA. Did I get it right?
Almost. Cherkasova. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. And thanks to Bob Allison for turning me on to you. And I'll talk to you soon. Yes. Thank you.
Talk to you, Bradley. Thank you.
Bye-bye.